Well, a very good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Rupee sinks to a historic low against the dollar after the biggest single-day fall in over a month. $1 now costs more than 83 rupees. The Indian currency has lost 2% this month and 12% so far in 2022. Vodafone Idea struggles continue as it loses subscribers for the 17th straight month. The company's board will meet later this week to consider issuing convertible debentures to a vendor, even as there is still no clarity on potential debt conversion by the government to pick up more than 30% stake. Nestle reports 18% quarterly domestic revenue growth, the highest in the last 5 years, but inflation continues to eat into the margins. Ultratech reports a mixed bag. Revenue rises 16%, but profits drop 42% and margins shrink. Union government announces a major bureaucratic reshuffle. New secretaries appointed to a dozen ministries. Sanjay Malhotra will be the new revenue secretary when Tarun Bajaj's term ends in November. Vivek Joshi, meanwhile, will be the new financial services secretary. Supreme Court dismisses a plea by educational trusts seeking exemptions under the Income Tax Act. Rules that educational trusts seeking tax exemption should not be profit-oriented. The insurance regulator is unlikely to approve the valuation methodology for the second leg of the Axis Bank Max Life transaction. The regulator is of the view that Axis Bank must buy the balance 7% stake it is due to acquire in Max Life at uniform and fair market value. Veteran leader Mallikarjun Kharge wins the Congress presidential elections against Shashi Tharoor with 88% of the valid votes. Kharge would be the first non-Gandhi to head the Grand Old Party in 24 years. Netflix beats expectations in the third quarter, adds more than 2 million subscribers, much higher than the forecast of 1 million. Also reveals new plans to crack down on password sharing. Protests erupt across key European cities as inflation bites. Prices cross 10% in the UK. Citizens take to the streets in parts of France and Germany as energy costs set to rise this coming winter. The Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi bans firecrackers and announces stringent punishment. Purchasing and bursting of crackers will be punishable with up to 6 months in jail and a penalty of 200 rupees. Families living in Mumbai's Dharavi who make a living out of making earthen pots and lamps are pinning their hopes on Diwali to make up for the 2 years lost due to the pandemic. But inflation and unseasonal rains are dimming their hopes. A special report is coming up. Well, the top story this evening, the rupee is at a record low. $1 now costs more than 83 rupees. The Indian currency has lost 2% this month and 12% so far in 2022. The slide today was the biggest single-day fall in a month. Ritu Singh joins us now with more details. Ritu, tell us more about this dramatic fall.
Well, that's right. The rupee fell 66 paise today to post its biggest single-day fall in a month. It is a record low for the rupee versus the greenback as surging U.S. Treasury yields prompted a broader rally in the U.S. dollar. Now, the rupee ended at a historic low of 83.02 against the dollar. It is now down 2% this month and nearly 12% so far in this year alone. Now, the U.S. 10-year yields also surged above 4%, and these have yanked up yields globally. And these rising yields and stronger dollar have actually pushed the rupee down further. Bond yields and equities in turn have been rising because the runway to growth appears clearer than perhaps some time ago. Now, other Asian currencies also weakened, so rupee was not the only one. But with today's move, the rupee has breached that psychological support level of 82.30 to 40, which is leading importers to also rush to buy more dollars and test that limit as well. Traders also told us that there was large dollar demand coming in from a public sector entity, which also to an extent contributed to the rupee fall that we saw today. Now, while there was no RBI supply at 82.30 levels, dealers did tell us some support emerged when the rupee touched around 83 to the dollar.
Last 2 days, dollar index was slowly creeping up, but we were anchored well at 82.40. And today, whenever there is a level which is anchored and then you don't find support, people try to find the new level, and that's what actually happened. So I would say next 2-3 months, it's going to be completely volatile, right? So and there is no fundamental, even the finance minister says it's nothing to do with rupee per se. It is next 1 year, maybe next financial year, first quarter next financial year. But till that, we'll have to live with the world volatility.
Well, meanwhile, on Dalal Street, the stock markets managed to eke out some gains despite the sharp fall in the rupee. The Sensex as well as the Nifty did come under pressure in late trade, but ended the day in the green. Sensex has reclaimed 59,000 after gaining nearly 150 points. Nifty gained about 25 points. Banks and mid-caps also ended in the green. Well, Vodafone Idea struggles are only increasing. The telecom company has lost subscribers for the 17th month in a row. Now, there is lack of clarity on the government converting its debt into the company to pick up more than 30% stake. Amidst all of this, Vodafone Idea is likely to issue convertible debentures to a vendor as it remains strapped for cash. Reema Tendulkar is joining us with more details. Reema.
Yes, so for the 5th straight month in a row, Reliance Jio has added more subscribers than anyone else. But Vodafone Idea continues to lose subscribers, not just in the month of August, but for 17 straight months it's lost subscribers. In August, it lost close to about 20 lakh subscribers. In the last 12 months, its subscriber base has declined by 1.79 crore. What's the street worried about? Well, the street was worried about the funding situation. There was some news on the funding front. The company said that there's a board meeting which is going to be scheduled to be held on 21st, that's 2 days hence, where they will evaluate a proposal for issuance of convertible debentures to a vendor. It basically means that, the vendor dues. If I am a vendor of Vodafone Idea, I have dues outstanding, say, of 5,000 crore rupees. In lieu of that, I will, purchase an NCD, for instance, a convertible debenture of Vodafone Idea, and then I have the option to convert it into equity a few months, 1 year, 2 years down the line. So it's money which is going to be raised from the vendor to be repaid back to the vendor. It's not that money is going to go back to, Vodafone Idea, which it can use for capex. And that's the fear in the market, right? The company has been unable to raise money which can pump its growth, fuel its capex to defend its market share. The company, Vodafone Idea, has said that out of 23 circles in India, 17 of them are priority. They have already said that 6 of them are non-priority circles. So all their investments, the capex, the 5G spectrum that they've acquired, caters to those 17 circles. In this remaining 6 circles, where the company's focus is a little less, because the revenue market share in those 6 circles is just 2%, which is why the street, Vodafone Idea, is not particularly worried about these circles, even if they lose subscribers. But over there, the street fears the subscriber loss could continue, and these 6 circles have about 1.6 crore subscribers. So the worry is that, in the absence of a fundraise, a big fundraise, perhaps the market share losses for Vodafone Idea may just continue. Back to you.
Right, Reema. Thanks a lot for that. Now, on some key earnings, Nestle India reports a strong set of numbers. The 18% growth in domestic revenue is the highest in the last 5 years. Profit growth was also above estimates. However, inflation continues to eat into the margins, which came in marginally lower than street's expectations. In more earnings, cement major Ultratech reported a mixed bag in the second quarter. Profits were down 42% compared to the same period last year, even though it was largely in line with expectations. Revenue growth was over 16%, which was above estimates, but EBITDA was down over 13%, with margins contracting from more than 22% last year to just over 13%. Ultratech also lost, in fact, its debt rose by 50% from 5,500 crore rupees to nearly 8,400 crore rupees due to the rise in working capital and growth capex. In global earnings, Netflix beat expectations, adding 2.4 million subscribers in the September quarter. Wall Street was expecting Netflix to add 1 million subscribers, and it delivered much more than that. The company also said that it would begin to crack down on password sharing next year. Earnings per share and overall revenue were also above estimates. In news now from the National Capital Union, government announced a major bureaucratic reshuffle with new secretaries being appointed to a dozen ministries. Sanjay Malhotra has been appointed as the new Revenue Secretary. He will take charge on the superannuation of Tarun Bajaj, the current Revenue Secretary, on November 30th. Sanjay Malhotra is currently the Secretary for the Department of Financial Services. The government has also appointed Vivek Joshi as the Financial Services Secretary. He's currently the Registrar General of India and Census Commissioner. He's also the Secretary for the Ministry of Home Affairs. Well, it was day 2 of the Defence Expo in Gandhinagar. Speaking at the event, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that 1,300 companies showcasing their products has caused inconvenience to some countries, but several nations with positive mindsets are beginning to join hands with India.
हम दुनिया के 75 से ज्यादा देशों को रक्षा सामग्री और उपकरण एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, निर्यात कर रहे हैं और आने वाले समय में हमने इसे $5 बिलियन यानी 40,000 करोड़ रुपए तक पहुंचाने का लक्ष्य रखा है.
Well, the Supreme Court today dismissed a plea filed by educational trusts seeking exemptions under the IT Act. The court said that educational trusts or societies which seek exemption under the Income Tax Act should solely be concerned with education or related activities. Let's keep in mind that so far, the rule of the law land essentially was that for an educational trust to seek exemption under IT Act, they would be required to show that they are predominantly, the keyword being predominantly, engaged in the activities of education. That has been the understanding so far as of this morning. Things changed this morning. The Supreme Court gave its judgment and clarified that the predominant threshold is no longer sufficient. The Supreme Court said that for educational trusts to secure IT exemption under the Income Tax Act, they have to demonstrate that they are solely, the key word here being solely, dedicated and committed to activities of education. What's important here is that the Supreme Court has further clarified that the profit motive cannot be the main motivating factor or the driving objective behind the educational trust. They would be ineligible in such a scenario. However, the Apex Court has clarified that profit is not barred as long as it is incidental. So, for an example, if there's an educational trust that runs a school and in the process also leases, in fact, provides hostel facilities to its students, that is an educational activity because students require hostel facilities. But if those hostel facilities were then to be leased out to students of other educational institutions or other students, in that case, it would be not related to education directly. It would be a rental activity, and therefore, such an activity is not permitted. So, two takeaways here. The Supreme Court holding that for educational trusts to seek IT exemptions, they must be solely committed to the idea of education and educational activities, and that profit cannot be the motivation behind the educational trust. An important clarification this, but we spoke to many experts. They tell us that this could cause some confusion going ahead at the implementation stage. Also important to point out that this is prospective in nature. It will not be applied. This judgment will not be applied retrospectively. That's the big takeaway here from the Apex Court. But let's move forward now. The insurance regulator is unlikely to approve the valuation methodology for the second leg of the Axis Bank Max Life transaction. Now, the regulator is of the view that Axis Bank must buy the balance 7% stake it is due to acquire in Max Life at a uniform and fair market value. Yash Jain is joining us now with more details. Yash.
Well, it was just last week when the insurance regulator IRDAI passed two crucial orders under which it penalized both entities, that is Max Life Insurance as well as Axis Bank, for executing a transaction between the two companies which according to the regulator was not done at fair market value. Now, if I put the whole transaction in context, then Axis Bank plans to acquire a total of 20% stake in Max Life Insurance, out of which 13% has been executed already, where the insurance regulator raised red flags and penalized both entities for the wrongdoings, and it's the balance 7% stake where the regulatory pressure has really come now. What we've been given to understand from our sources is that the insurance regulator is not in the favor of approving this acquisition of balance 7% stake in Max Life by Axis Bank in the same way how the first 13% was done. What it means is that the regulator is going to ask both entities to arrive at a fair market value which is uniform as far as the pricing is concerned to the historic transactions before giving its approval to the acquisition of that 7% stake. Now, as far as this particular acquisition is concerned, both companies, that is Max Life and Axis Bank, will have to make a presentation to the regulator, giving the regulator an assessment of the fair market value, and if the regulator is satisfied with that explanation, only then this acquisition of 7% stake will get the regulator's approval. What's the big question which emerges after this? The first one is what will be the fair market value and how will it be assessed as far as the teams are concerned. The second one is that when Axis Bank has already acquired 13% stake at a particular price, and if the fair market value comes much higher than that price, then would Axis Bank shareholders be comfortable with acquiring that 7% stake at that higher price?
Right, Yash, thanks a lot for that update. Now, Piramal Pharma shares hit lower circuit today after listing. The demerged entity from Piramal Enterprises was listed at 200 rupees per share. India First Life Insurance is likely to file its IPO papers with SEBI by November. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the company will raise 2,000 crore rupees via the IPO through the offer for sale route. Formed in 2009, India First is one of the youngest insurance companies and is aiming for a valuation of 9,000 crore rupees. In the aviation sector, domestic air passenger traffic rose by over 46% in September as compared to last year, while the growth between January to September period rose by over 64% versus last year. Indigo remained the leader with market share unchanged at 57.7%. Tata Group Airlines, including Air India, AirAsia and Vistara, saw a combined market share of 24.7%. In on-time performance, Vistara took the first spot with 91% punctuality, followed by AirAsia and then Air India. Meanwhile, budget airline SpiceJet has revised the salaries of its employees starting November. The salaries of captains has been hiked from 4.5 lakh rupees to 7 lakh rupees if they fly 80 hours and over 6 lakh rupees if they fly 70 hours. The Competition Commission has penalized online travel company Make My Trip and hospitality player Oyo for alleged anti-competitive practices. MMT has been fined over 223 crore rupees, while Oyo has been asked to pay 168 crore rupees. CCI has also asked MMT to improve its market behavior. The Tamil Nadu government has introduced a bill to ban online gambling. The government passed an ordinance to this effect a few months back, which was struck down by the Madras High Court. A second ordinance was passed after an expert committee suggested legal changes. The move follows a spate of suicides in the state, allegedly due to online gambling. And well, speaking of online gambling, sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the Central Consumer Protection Authority has sent a show-cause notice to 6 online betting apps for violating advertising norms. Timsy Jaipuria joins us now with more details. Timsy.
Well, in yet another move to ensure that online betting platforms are not taking the consumers for a ride, the Central Consumer Protection Authority has sent show-cause notices to a few betting apps for violating advertising norms. According to CCPA, as many as 6 online betting apps have been issued these notices for surrogate ads, as they were claiming the online betting app as a news platform and selling that to the consumers. According to sources, the apps that have received these notices are Fairplay, Dafabet, IndiaBet, Parimatch, 1xBet and Wolf 777. Let's see what do these betting platforms have to say in their defense to the government, in their formal response, and how soon the government actually takes an action and step forward, asking them to pull down their misleading ads. That is something that we'll have to wait and watch for. Back to you.
Well, here's the big national story. Mallikarjun Kharge will be the first non-Gandhi to lead the Congress party in 24 years. Now, the veteran leader defeated Shashi Tharoor in the Congress presidential elections, bagging 88% of the valid votes. A staunch Gandhi family loyalist, Kharge has had a 53-year association with the Grand Old Party.
I, Madhusudan Mistry, hereby declare Sri Mallikarjun Kharge elected as the President of Indian National Congress.
As expected, Mallikarjun Kharge has been elected as the president of the Congress party. The election process has concluded. Mallikarjun Kharge got almost 90% of the votes. It was being said that Kharge's victory is almost a foregone conclusion.
हम संगठन को भी मजबूत करेंगे और इन चुनौतियों से भी लड़ेंगे। दिल्ली की सत्ता पर बैठे हुए हुक्मरान सरकार बातें तो बहुत करते हैं पर काम कुछ नहीं होता।
मैं चाहता हूं कि खड़गे साहब का विजय हम सब मान ले कि कांग्रेस पार्टी की जीत है। मैंने शुरुआत से ही कहा था ये कोई व्यक्ति का विषय नहीं।
The Congress president will decide what my role is and how I am to be deployed.
Well, with that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up, families living in Mumbai's Dharavi, who make a living out of making earthen pots and lamps, are pinning their hopes on Diwali to make up for the 2 years lost due to the pandemic. A special report is coming up. Welcome back. Now, the families of potters in Dharavi's Kumbharwada settlement that make a living out of making earthen pots and lamps are pinning their hopes on the Diwali making up for the last 2 years lost due to the pandemic. But inflation and unseasonal rains could play spoil sport. Shilpa Rani Peta spoke to potters on how they're gearing up for the peak season sale.
These narrow lanes of Dharavi are home to a century-old settlement of hundreds of families of potters. All the earthen pots, lamps and other products sold across Mumbai are made in this 12-acre settlement. And Diwali is peak season for them. And households here are busy either packing, making or painting hundreds of diyas that will now make their way across the city of Mumbai. And after 2 years of COVID, this year's sales are key for them. But 40-year-old Hasmukh Narayan Tak, a third-generation potter, is a worried man. Diwali demand is picking up, but he has only managed to make 1,000 lamps against his usual 2,500 per day. That's because of unseasonal rainfall, which means his lamps don't dry quickly.
अभी दिन में तो पहले है ना 2,500-3 हज़ार हो जाता था, तो अभी है ना 1,000 होता है। बारिश के हिसाब से प्रॉब्लम हो गया। अभी 2 बजेगा ना 2:30 बजे तो बारिश चालू। कल भी पूरा माल बिक गया। ये साल दिवाली अच्छी रहती थी ना तो मजा आता था। बारिश नहीं रहती थी ना तो अच्छा रहता था।
It's not just the rains that are threatening to dampen sales. Rising raw material and labor costs are eating into margins, and the influx of machine-made diyas with intricate designs from other states is eaten onto the market for the traditional handmade ones.
दिए का तो भाव वही है, लेकिन हमको कलर का पैसा बढ़ा है, थैली का बढ़ा, जो अंदर जो पैकिंग आता है उसका बढ़ा है। फिर ये जो वैक्स जो हम लोग जो पोरिंग करते हैं उसके अंदर जो मेल्ट करके उसका जो 90 रुपीज़ केजी था आज 135 रुपीज़ केजी है और हमारा प्राइस वही है। ट्रांसपोर्ट बढ़ा है, यानी वो मिट्टी के ऊपर गया खर्चा। दिए का तो वही भाव है, 10 साल से 2 रुपया ही है, उसमें कुछ नहीं बढ़ा है। सब बाहर मार्केट दिया पेंटिंग वाला और सब रहे ना, वो चल रहा है। पर ये ना पहला इसका मार्केट बहुत पहले साल ये इसका मार्केट था, अभी इसका डाउन हो गया थोड़ा, अभी डिजाइन वाला क्या आ गया।
But there is still some hope. Several families started work as early as 8 months ago in anticipation of good demand this year, and footfalls are increasing as Diwali nears.
अभी का साल मार्केट तेज है, महंगा है, सब महंगा है, पुटा दिया सब महंगा, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन महंगा है, कलर महंगा है, लेकिन तो भी मार्केट तेज है, मतलब सब महंगा तो महंगा लेके बेच रहे हैं।
The potters of Kumbharwada may survive this year, but the light is flickering on the future. Many of the artisans, especially those from the younger generation, don't see pottery as a sustainable means of livelihood anymore. While this Diwali may bring the much-needed revival to their livelihoods, in the next few years, the sights of these drying pots and these smoke kilns may become a rare one, as the current generation of artisans does not want to pass on the art. Instead, they want to use all their earnings to educate their children to move them out of the settlement in the hope of more lucrative jobs. In Mumbai with camera person Milind Wagmare, Shilpa Ranipeta.
Well, that's all the time that we have on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.